Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you for joining us for tonight's Majlis program. The Majlis has been sponsored for the Salisab of the following Marhumeen. Marhumeen of HASSANALI Rajani, VISRAM MUKHI, NAZARALI BHOJANI, JANMOHAMMED ASARIA, HUSSEIN WALJI, PETHA RAMJI, HUSSEIN MOLOO, Master Sharif, and Khwaja Lalji, and all Marhumeen of those families and all Marhumeen. Can I ask you to recite one Surah Fatiha for all these Marhumeen and all our Marhumeen al-Fatiha. We'll start tonight's program with Hadith Iqsa, followed by Surah Yasin, and followed by Surah Mulk. We'll have Hadith Iqsa.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. عن جابر بن عبد الله الأنصاري أنه قال عن فاطمة الزهراء عليه السلام بنت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله قال سمعت فاطمة أنها قالت دخل علي أبي رسول الله في بعض الأيام فقال السلام عليك يا فاطمة فقلت عليك السلام قال إني أجد في بدني ضعفا فقلت له أعوذك بالله يا أبتاه من الضعف فقال يا فاطمة ائتيني بالكساء اليماني فغطيني به فأتيته بالكساء اليماني فغطيته به وسرت أنظر إليه وإذا وجهه يتلألأ كأنه البدر في ليلة تمامه وكماله فما كانت إلا ساعة وإذا بولدي الحسن قد أقبل وقال السلام عليك يا أماه فقلت عليك السلام يا قرة عيني وثمرة فؤادي فقال يا أماه إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة جدي رسول الله فقلت نعم إن جدك تحت الكساء فأقبل الحسن نحو الكساء وقال السلام عليك يا جداه يا رسول الله أتأذن لي أن أدخل معك تحت الكساء فقال وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا صاحب حوضك قد أذنت لك فدخل معه تحت الكساء فما كانت إلا ساعة وإذا بولدي الحسين قد أقبل وقال السلام عليك يا أماه فقلت عليك السلام يا ولدي ويا قرة عيني وثمرة فؤادي فقال لي يا أماه إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة جدي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله فقلت نعم إن جدك وأخاك تحت الكساء فدنا الحسين نحو الكساء وقال السلام عليك يا جدا والسلام عليك يا من اختاره الله أتأذن لي أن أكون معكما تحت الكساء فقال وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا شافي أمتي قد أذنت لك فدخل معهما تحت الكساء فأقبل عند ذلك أبو الحسن علي بن أبي طالب وقال السلام عليك يا بنت رسول الله فقلت عليك السلام يا أبا الحسن ويا أمير المؤمنين فقال يا فاطمة إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة أخي وابن عمي رسول الله فقلت نعم ها هو مع ولديك تحت الكساء فأقبل علي نحو الكساء وقال السلام عليك يا رسول الله أتأذن لي أن أكون معكم تحت الكساء قال له عليك السلام يا أخي ويا وسيي وخليفتي وصاحب لواي قد أذنت لك فدخل علي تحت الكساء ثم أتيت نحو الكساء وقلت السلام عليك يا أبتاه يا رسول الله أتأذن لي أن أكون معكم تحت الكساء قال وعليك السلام يا بنتي ويا بضعتي قد أذنت لك فدخلت تحت الكساء فلما اكتملنا جميعا تحت الكساء أخذ بي رسول الله بطرفي الكساء وأومى بيدي اليمنى إلى السماء وقال اللهم إن هؤلاء أهل بيتي وخاصتي وهامتي لحمهم لحمي ودمهم دمي يؤلمني ما يؤلمهم ويحزنني ما يحزنهم أنا هرب لمن هاربهم وسلم لمن صالمهم وعدو لمن آتاهم ومحب لمن أحبهم إنهم مني وأنا منهم فاجعل صلواتك وبركاتك ورحمتك وغفرانك ورضوانك علي وعليهم وأذهب عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا اللهم صل على محمد. فقال الله عز وجل يا ملائكتي ويا سكان السماوات إني ما خلقت سماء مبنية ولا أرضا مدهية ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مضيئة ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحرا يجري ولا فلكا يسري إلا في محبة هؤلاء الخمسة الذين هم تحت الكساء. فقال الأمين جبرائيل يا ربي ومن تحت الكساء فقال عز وجل هم أهل بيت النبوة ومعدن الرسالة هم فاطمة وأبوها وبعلها وبنوها اللهم صل على محمد. فقال جبرائيل يا ربي أتأذن لي أن أحبط إلى الأرض ليكون معهم سادسا فقال الله نعم قد أذنت لك فهبت الأمين جبرائيل وقال السلام عليك يا رسول الله العلي الأعلى يقرئك السلام ويخصك بالتحية والإكرام ويقول لك وعزتي وجلالي إني ما خلقت سماء مبنية ولا أرضا مدهية ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مضيئة ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحرا يجري ولا فلقا يسري إلا لأجلكم ومحبتكم وقد أذن لي أن أدخل معكم فهل تأذن لي يا رسول الله فقال رسول الله وعليك السلام يا أمين وحي الله إنه نعم قد أذنت لك فدخل جبرائيل معنا تحت الكساء فقال لأبي إن الله قد أوحى إليكم يقول إنما يريد الله ليذهب عنكم الرجس أهل البيت ويطهركم تطهيرا اللهم صل على محمد. فقال علي لأبي يا رسول الله أخبرني ما لجلوسنا هذا تحت الكساء من الفضل عند الله فقال النبي والذي بعثني بالحق نبيا واصطفاني بالرسالة نجيا ما ذكر خبرنا هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض وفيه جمع من شيئتنا ومحبينا إلا ونزلت عليهم الرحمة وحفت بهم الملائكة واستغفرت لهم إلى أن يتفرقوا فقال علي إذا والله فوتنا وفاض شيئتنا ورب الكعبة فقال النبي الثاني يا علي والذي بعثني بالحق نبيا واصطفاني بالرسالة نجيا ما ذكر خبرنا هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض وفيه جمع من شيئتنا ومحبينا وفيهم مهموم إلا وفرج الله همه ولا مهموم إلا وكشف الله همه ولا تعرب حاجة إلا وقضى الله حاجته فقال علي إذا والله فوتنا وسئدنا وكذلك شيئتنا فاذوا وسئدوا في الدنيا والآخرة ورب الكعبة اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
لتنذر قوما ما أنذر آباؤهم فهم غافلون لقد حق القول على أكثرهم فهم لا يؤمنون إنا جعلنا في أعناقهم أغلالا فهي إلى الأذقان فهم مقمحون وجعلنا من بين أيديهم سدا ومن خلفهم سدا فأغشيناهم فهم يبصرون وسواء عليهم أنذرتهم أم لم تنذرهم لا يؤمنون إنما تنذر من اتبع الذكر وخشي الرحمن بالغيب فبشره بمغفرة وأجر كريم إنا نحن نحيي الموتى ونكتب ما قدموا وآثارهم وكل شيء أحصيناه في إمام مبين واضرب لهم مثلا أصحاب القرية إذ جاء المرسلون إذ أرسلنا إليهم اثنين فكذبوهما فعززنا بثالث فقالوا إنا إليكم مرسلون قالوا ما أنتم إلا بشر مثلنا وما أنزل الرحمن من شيء إن أنتم إلا تكذبون قالوا ربنا يعلم إنا إليكم لمرسلون وما علينا إلا البلاغ المبين قالوا إنا تطيرنا بكم لئن لم تنتهوا لنرجمنكم وليمسنكم منا عذاب أليم قالوا طائركم معكم أئن ذكرتم بل أنتم قوم مسرفون وجاء من أقصى المدينة رجل يسعى قال يا قوم اتبعوا المرسلين اتبعوا من لا يسألكم أجرا وهم محتدون وما لي لا أعبد الذي فطرني وإليه ترجعون أأتخذ من دونه آلهة إن يردني الرحمن بضر لا تغني عني شفاعتهم شيئا ولا ينقذون إني إذا لفي ضلال مبين إني آمنت بربكم فاسمعون قيل ادخل الجنة قال يا ليت قومي يعلمون بما غفر لي ربي وجعلني من المكرمين وما أنزلنا على قومه من بعده من جند من السماء وما كنا منزلين إن كانت إلا صيحة واحدة فإذا هم خامدون يا حسرة على العباد ما يأتيهم من رسول إلا كانوا به يستهزئون ألم يروا كما أهلكنا قبلهم من القرون أنهم إليهم لا يرجعون وإن كل لما جميع لدينا محضرون وآية لهم الأرض الميتة أحييناها وأخرجنا منها حبا فمنه يأكلون وجعلنا فيها جنات من نخيل وعناب وفجرنا فيها من العيون ليأكلوا من ثمره وما عملته أيديهم أفلا يشكرون سبحان الذي خلق الأزواج كلها مما تنبت الأرض ومن أنفسهم ومما لا يعلمون وآية لهم الليل نسلخ منه النهار فإذا هم مظلمون والشمس تجري لمستقر لها ذلك تقدير عزيز أليم والقمر قدرناه منازل حتى عاد كالأرجون القديم لا الشمس ينبغي لها أن تدرك القمر ولا الليل سابق النهار وكل في فلك يسبحون وآية لهم أنا حملنا ذريتهم في الفلك المشحون وخلقنا لهم من مثله ما يركبون وإن نشأ نغرقهم فلا صريخ لهم ولا هم ينقذون إلا رحمة منا ومتاعا إلى حين وإذا قيل لهم اتقوا ما بين أيديكم وما خلفكم لعلكم ترحمون وما تأتيهم من آية من آيات ربهم إلا كانوا عنها معرضين وإذا قيل لهم أنفقوا مما رزقكم الله قال الذين كفروا وللذين آمنوا نطعم من لو يشاء والله أطعمه إن أنتم إلا في ضلال مبين ويقولون متى هذا الوعد إن كنتم صادقين ما ينظرون إلا صيحة واحدة تأخذهم وهم يخصمون فلا يستطيعون توصية ولا إلى أهلهم يرجعون ونفخ في الصور فإذا هم من الأجداث إلى ربهم ينصلون قالوا يا ويلنا من بعثنا من مرقدنا هذا ما وعد الرحمن وصدق المرسلون إن كانت إلا صيحة واحدة فإذا هم جميع لدينا محضرون فاليوم لا تظلم نفس شيئا ولا تجزون إلا ما كنتم تعملون إن أصحاب الجنة اليوم في شغل فاكهون هم وأزواجهم في ظلال على الأرائك متكئون لهم فيها فاكهة ولهم ما يدعون سلام قولا من رب رحيم وامتازوا اليوم أيها المجرمون ألم أعهد إليكم يا بني آدم ألا تعبدوا الشيطان إنه لكم عدو مبين وأن اعبدوني هذا صراط مستقيم ولقد أذل منكم جبلا كثيرا أفلم تكونوا تعقلون هذه جهنم التي كنتم توعدون اصلوها اليوم بما كنتم تكفرون اليوم نختم على أفواههم وتكلمنا أيديهم وتشهد أرجلهم بما كانوا يكسبون ولو نشاء لطمسنا على أعينهم فاستبقوا الصراط فأنى يبصرون ولو نشاء لمسخناهم على مكانتهم فما استطاعوا مضيا ولا يرجعون ومن نعمره ننكسه في الخلق أفلا يعقلون وما علمناه الشعر وما ينبغي له إن هو إلا ذكر وقرآن مبين لينذر من كان حيا ويحق القول على الكافرين أولم يروا أنا خلقنا لهم مما عملت أيدينا أنعاما فهم لها مالكون وذللناها لهم فمنها ركوبهم ومنها يأكلون ولهم فيها منافع ومشارب أفلا يشكرون واتخذوا من دون الله آلهة لعلهم ينصرون لا يستطيعون نصرهم وهم لهم جند محضرون فلا يحزنك قولهم إنا نعلم ما يسرون وما يعلنون أولم ير الإنسان أنا خلقناه من نطفة فإذا هم خصيم مبين وضرب لنا مثلا ونسي خلقه قال من يحيي العظام وهي رميم قل يحييها الذي ينشأها أول مرة وهو بكل خلق عليم الذي جعل لكم من الشجر الأخضر نارا فإذا أنتم منه توقدون أوليس الذي خلق السماوات والأرض بقادر على أن يخلق مثلهم بلى وهو خلاق عليم إنما أمره إذا أراد شيئا أن يقول له كن فيكون فسبحان الذي بيده ملكوت كل شيء وإليه ترجعون صدق الله العلي العظيم.
الفاتحة. We'll now have Surah Mulk by HUSSEIN WALJI.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم تبارك الذي بيده الملك وهو على كل شيء قدير الذي خلق الموت والحياة ليبلوكم أيكم أحسن عملا وهو العزيز الغفور الذي خلق 7 سماوات طباقا ما ترى في خلق الرحمن من تفاوت فارجع البصر هل ترى من فطور ثم ارجع البصر كرتين ينقلب إليك البصر خاسئا وهو حسير ولقد زينا السماء الدنيا بمصابيح وجعلناها رجوما للشياطين وأعتدنا لهم عذاب السعير وللذين كفروا بربهم عذاب جهنم وبئس المصير إذا ألقوا فيها سمعوا لها شهيقا وهي تفور تكاد تميز من الغيظ كلما ألقي فيها فوج سألهم خزنتها ألم يأتكم نذير قالوا بلى قد جاءنا نذير فكذبنا وقلنا ما نزل الله من شيء إن أنتم إلا في ضلال كبير وقالوا لو كنا نسمع أو نعقل ما كنا في أصحاب السعير فاعترفوا بذنبهم فسحقا لأصحاب السعير إن الذين يخشون ربهم بالغيب لهم مغفرة وأجر كبير وأسروا قولكم أو اجهروا به إنه عليم بذات الصدور ألا يعلم من خلق وهو اللطيف الخبير هو الذي جعل لكم الأرض ذلولا فامشوا في مناكبها وكلوا من رزقه وإليه النشور آمنتم من في السماء أن يخسف بكم الأرض فإذا هي تمور أم أمنتم من في السماء أن يرسل عليكم حاسبا فستعلمون كيف نذير ولقد كذب الذين من قبلهم فكيف كان نكير أولم يروا إلى الطير فوقهم صافات ويقبضن ما يمسكهن إلا الرحمن إنه إنه بكل شيء بصير أمن هذا الذي هو جند لكم ينصركم من دون الرحمن إن الكافرون إلا في غرور أمن هذا الذي يرزقكم إن أمسك رزقه بل لجوا في عتو ونفور أفمن يمشي مكبا على وجهه أهدى أمن يمشي سويا على صراط مستقيم قل هو الذي أنشأكم وجعل لكم السمع والأبصار والأفئدة قليلا ما تشكرون قل هو الذي ذراكم في الأرض وإليه تحشرون ويقولون متى هذا الوعد إن كنتم صادقين قل إنما العلم عند الله وإنما أنا نذير مبين فلما رأوه زلفة سيئت وجوه الذين كفروا وقيل هذا الذي كنتم به تدعون قل أرأيتم إن أهلكني الله ومن معي أو رحمنا فمن يجير الكافرين من عذاب أليم قل هو الرحمن آمنا به وعليه توكلنا فستعلمون من هو في ضلال مبين قل أرأيتم إن أصبح ماؤكم غورا فمن يأتيكم بماء معين صدق الله العلي العظيم.
الفاتحة.
Salawat.
We'll have a poem by Abbas Rajani, followed by two Marsiyas, one by Zainul Abidin and one by Sheikh Yusuf Ali Dirani.
Salawat.
Muhammad wa ala Muhammad.
O my Imam, our hearts long for you. Come show us, O guide, that which is true. Please save us, O Mahdi, from the evils we face. O Mahdi, my leader, how I wish you'd arrive. On my brothers and sisters from Palestine to Iraq, please end this separation. It's very long. You are the teacher of God's and words His love. O my sinless Imam, I'll die for your cause. I wish to be there when you call those who believe. I want to fight in your army against those who deceive. Please teach me the ways to be a servant like you, who loves and fears Allah, is pure-hearted, and I long for your presence each day and each night. You are the guide to the path that is right. Please lead me on it, for you're the purest of pure, with nur, and you're bright. The world is in need for your reveal. My Imam, please come soon to deepen the light. Salawat.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala
Salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Oh Fatima, I am so alone. Without you around, this house is no longer a home. Oh Fatima, I am so alone. Without you around, this house is no longer a home. How will I forget the things that I saw? Your ribs that were crushed, the nail and the door. Your tormented cries, the blood on the floor. Mohsin, our son, whose life is no more. Oh Fatima, it broke me to see. Though you were in pain, you crawled trying to save Ali. Oh Fatima, I am so alone. Without you around, this house is no longer a home. This grief in my heart cannot be contained. But how can I cry in front of Hussein? I wandered the streets without any aim to find anyone who can share my pain. Oh Fatima, my heart sobs for you. I cry by myself in alleys that are destitute. Oh Fatima, I am so alone. Without you around, this house is no longer a home. My deep loneliness is now breaking me. How can I escape this cycle of grief? These tears are flowing just like the sea. My love, come and see the state of Ali. Oh Fatima, I can't see the day. The light of my eyes and life from me was snatched away. Oh Fatima, I am so alone. Without you around, this house is no longer a home. They tell me, Ali, we thought you were strong. You lifted the gate of Khaybar alone. So why is it that you cry on and on? You know better than us that she is gone. Oh, Fatima, if only they knew the bruises and scars I saw when I was washing you. Oh, Fatima, I am so alone. Without you around, this house is no longer a home. The children are searching just for your scent. How can I explain your absence to them? There aren't any words to stop their lament. You went for them all, a mother and friend. Oh, Fatima, they will cry aloud when they look at you laying motionless in a shroud. Oh, Fatima, I am so alone. Without you around, this house is no longer a home. You know that a day will come on Hussein. He will be alone upon burning plains. A shower of stones and arrows will rain. With 12 blunted strikes his neck will be slain. Oh, Fatima, they will trample him. His chest will be torn and he'll bleed from his every limb. Oh, Fatima, I am so alone. Without you around, this house is no longer a home. Oh, Fatima, I am so alone. Without you around, this house is no longer a home. Salawat. Allah.
Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. Hai khairun nisa Fatima, Fatima. Hai khairun nisa Fatima, Fatima. देखो सूरज के घर में अंधेरा हुआ. हाय खैरुन्निसा फातिमा, फातिमा. एक महशर उठा एक कयामत मची. हाय दुनिया से खा तूने जन्नत चली. एक महशर उठा एक कयामत मची. हाय दुनिया से खा तूने जन्नत चली. अब अकेले अकेले है शेरे खुदा. हाय खैरुन्निसा फातिमा, फातिमा. पास बुलवा के बच्चों को बोसे दिए. जाते जाते यूं प्यार رو کو تحفے دیے، پاس بلوا کے بچوں کو بوسے دیے، جاتے جاتے یوں پیاروں کو تحفے دیے، دیکھ کر یہ فرشتوں کا دل ہل گیا، ہائے خیر النساء فاطمہ فاطمہ، آہو زاری میرے بچوں اچھی نہیں، ماں کسی کی ہمیشہ تو رہتی نہیں، آہو زاری میرے بچوں اچھی نہیں، ماں کسی کی ہمیشہ تو رہتی نہیں، صبر کرنا کہ ہے صابروں کا خدا، ہائے خیر النساء فاطمہ فاطمہ، ہائے خیر النساء فاطمہ فاطمہ۔ پھر بی زہرا علیہ السلام نے فرمایا، زہر تم کو دیا جائے گا اے حسن، میرا شبیر رہ جائے گا بے کفن، زہر تم کو دیا جائے گا اے حسن، میرا شبیر رہ جائے گا بے کفن، تم کو کرنا ہے نانا کا وعدہ وفا، ہائے خیر النساء فاطمہ فاطمہ، ہائے خیر النساء فاطمہ فاطمہ۔ اور آخری مصرع سماعت فرمائیے، غور کیجئے گا اس مصرے کو، کہ جب شہزادی نے مولا کائنات کو پاس بلایا، پھر مولا کائنات سے بی بی زہرا کہنے لگی، پاس بلوا کے شیر خدا سے کہا، اب تمہارے حوالے ہے یہ گھر میرا، پاس بلوا کے شیر خدا سے کہا، اب تمہارے حوالے ہے یہ گھر میرا، بخش دینا ہوئی ہو جو مجھ سے خطا، بخش دینا ہوئی ہو جو مجھ سے خطا، ہائے خیر النساء فاطمہ فاطمہ، ہائے خیر النساء فاطمہ فاطمہ، آج دونوں جہاں میں ہے ماتم بپا، ہائے خیر النساء فاطمہ फातिमा फातिमा देखो सूरज के घर में अंधेरा हुआ हाय खैरुन्निसा फातिमा फातिमा हाय खैरुन्निसा फातिमा फातिमा। जिन मरहुमीन के लिए ये मजलिस मुनअकिद की गई है उन मरहुमीन के लिए एक सूरह फातिहा पढ़ने की गुजारिश है। अल फातिहा।
Before we have tonight's Majlis by Sayyid Abbas Razawi, if I can once again request you all to recite Surah Fatiha for the following Marhumeen. The Marhumeen of HASSANALI Rajani, VISRAM MUKHI, NAZARALI BHOJANI, JANMOHAMMED ASARIA, HUSSEIN WALJI, PETHA RAMJI, HUSSEIN MOLOO, Master Sharif, and WALJI, and all our Marhumeen and all the Marhumeen of these families and all our Marhumeen around the world with the Surah Al-Fatiha.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ومولانا أبي القاسم محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. أما بعد، قال الله الحكيم في كتابه الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم، فسبحان الذي بيده ملكوت كل شيء وإليه ترجعون. صدق الله العلي العظيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. I think the tone has been set. The last two marsiyas were about Fatima alayhi salam. And I too am not going to digress away from that. Both very well read, both very heart touching. You know, we're lucky in many ways that we can gather together, perhaps spread across the country and across maybe the world. But even in this pandemic, we've got the tawfiq to come together to remember our Marhumeen. You know why that's important? Remember one thing, that nation that remembers its elders, especially those people who have gone before, is that nation that's blessed by Allah. To remember those people who have left this wilaya in our hearts, deen in our hearts, have left us in the situation that we're in. It's important. Al jaza al ihsani illa al ihsan. Look, each one of us is returning back to Allah, whether it's today or tomorrow or the day after. There's only 7 days in a week. Some of you will return on a Monday, some may return on a Tuesday, others may return on a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. There's no more days of the week. So At some point, very soon, each one of us are going to return back. And as we begin our journey to the next stage, the best thing that we can have is for people to remember us in the way that you're remembering and we're remembering today is Marhumeen. Why? Because that journey is a distant journey, in the sense that the journey is long, and what we've gathered is but very few things. And this is not me who's saying it, this is Amir al-Mu'mineen, who says one day when he was in the mihrab, he talks about the shortness of time and the distance of this journey. And I guess this year is that 1 year that puts everything into perspective. You know, last night we were reciting a majlis for a lady who'd passed away, a mother. The week before that, a young boy from our community who was only 33. Last night, just a couple of hours ago, the great mujtahid, Rajalis, muhaqqiq of this time, the greatest probably of this time at the moment, said Muhammad Hussein Jalali passed away. And in this way, every single day, there's somebody, news coming in of people passing away. This year has been a difficult year. But the beauty is that we're united and we're together and we're remembering. From March to now, we've seen multiple deaths and it doesn't hit you. Inshallah, when this pandemic is over, you'll see that when you go into your mosques, it's almost as if it's a different world. We've come into a different world, and perhaps it's going to require a different world. You know, you read some of the ahadith and the traditions of the Ahlul Bayt, especially to do with Akhir al-Zaman. And you see the situation and the state the community and society is going to be. Look and see when this new year comes, when this vaccine does come out, when we are back together again properly, you'll see the entire dynamics change. Within 1 year, an entire dynamics change. So one can really imagine, you know, when they say that the coming of the Imam will be very fast and things will move into motion very quickly. With the hadith of Ibn Tawus, for example, that 1/3 of the world will be wiped out because of white death, of which we're going through now. This is waba, is white death. 1/3 will be wiped out because of wars. The entire constitutions of countries will change. Governments will be toppled, etc., etc. The way things will be before the last days, confusion. This year tells you that it's more than possible for that to happen. Now, why do I say this? I say this because as situations change, as times change, we must hold on even more to those very beliefs that have kept us alive. Certain things are timeless. Certain things, as they say, are perennial. Your worship to Allah will remain, regardless of what situation there is. In fact, the more you worship Allah, the more you talk to Allah, the closer you get, the more peace you get in times of calamity and trials and tribulations. But the next stage is this. And look, in the last 2 Marsiyas, Bibi Fatima alayhi salam has been mentioned. Family has been mentioned. Ahlul Bayt has been mentioned. Remember one thing, we're a family. The Shia community needs to remain a family. For as long as we're united and together, even our decisions which are wrong, which we make wrongly, not out of any malice, but we've made the wrong decision, Allah will make it right for us. However small a community we are, for as long as we're united, you'll see our enemies will never overcome us, and no trial and tribulation will affect us. This is a sunnah that if you open up the Quran, you'll see with Bani Israel. For as long as they were united, you saw. For as long as they were united, nothing affected them. They were able to overcome the Pharaoh. They were able to go towards the promised land. But the minute they became divided, for 40 years they wandered. And this roaming for 40 years tells you that when this nation becomes disunited, a problem comes forward. Look, you have a message that is timeless. If we were to say that we're the chosen people, we're not wrong. The followers of the Ahlul Bayt are chosen. But you know what chosen people means? It doesn't mean that one becomes arrogant. Your chosenness is because you have a responsibility And that responsibility is to spread the message of Muhammad and Ali Muhammad. That message is first applied on yourself and then spread it to other people. That is why you're trusted, because you hold something, and the day that you keep it to yourself and not spread that out, it becomes problematic. You see, this is why many rabbis have also said when Bani Israel were chosen, there was a knowledge which was given to them that they didn't spread. And because they kept it to themselves, so calamity befalls. And it was only today that I was having a discussion with a prominent Jewish thinker specifically on this. And you see the parallels between Shiism in many ways and Bani Israel of old. And when I say this with complete authority because the hadith is there. That they say that, for example, you have 6,600 odd verses in the Quran, and 900 of them roughly deal with Bani Israel. And that's roughly just under 1/6, just over 1/6 deal with one thing, Bani Israel. And we've been told that the Ummah, this Shia of Amir al-Mu'mineen in Akhir al-Zaman, the mithal of them is the mithal of Bani Israel. How many of us have read the Quran to see exactly what it says about Bani Israel? How many of us have pondered over it? And you don't find that we have done. We don't understand exactly the mistakes that they made. The Quran talks about their mistakes. And so therefore from their mistakes we need to learn. First thing is this though. It is important for us to keep united, our unity. And the whole essence of a family is just that. You notice that when we go to a new country, when we go to a new city, there's two responsibilities that we have. Firstly, if there's no Jamaat, make a Jamaat. The reason being is that the first thing Rasulullah did was this. First thing he did was when he went to Medina, the minute he got there, he didn't institutionalize Salah as wajib yet. The first thing he did was he made a Jamaat. Masjid al-Nabawi is their Jamaat. It's where all the people came together. Now, for those people who go to a new town, a new city, the first priority should be that you should do your research before so that you become part of that Jamaat. Now, again, there's a different story altogether about membership or otherwise, but the fact is become a member in the sense that, look, writing something down on paper doesn't make you a member. Become a community member. That's what's important. And then from only then can you truly, and that only comes when we as a family are together. You know, today we're finding that our families are broken in the sense that you're living in one home. But what do you see? You find that dinner time comes, somebody's eating in one room, somebody's sitting in front of the television, somebody's eating at a different time. The whole essence is, you go back to Ibrahim alayhi salam, they ate together. They sat together. Rasulullah sat together. Now you may be asking, what rabt does this have? What relation does this have? This has a huge relationship. The reason being is this, is because the smallest thing has the biggest impact. Psychologically, and as well as within our traditions, to eat together increases love, increases connection of the family, keeps them together. And that's what's important. And I can give you examples, and we can carry on with those examples. But look, I don't want to do that. Look, our time is short. I have 30 to 40 minutes or so to wrap this up. So if we had an hour, we would go into more detail, but the fact is it's enough in the time limit that we have. So what's important for us is this, that the relationship of the Jamaat and the family come together. It's important for us. And part of that is to remember those people who have gone. If you look at Fatima alayhi salam, who does she always eat with? Remember the last day of her life, what she said to Ayman, when my two children come, feed them. And what did the two children say? We've not eaten before without our mother. That tells you of ethos and a philosophy. Parents should always eat with their children. Very small thing, very minute, but actually it has ramification on the akhirah, in this world, and at the same time togetherness. So that's the first thing I would say. Remember this always, right? Family must come together. And these are the relationships that we have, and only then can you bring your Jamaat together. It's the first thing. The second thing is this. Another lesson that we learn, look, within this period of time that we're going through, within this period of trial and tribulation that we're going through, where people are suffering because of these lockdowns and so forth, this is when community becomes even more important. The fact that we're linked here together, and this linkage wherever people are listening, remember this is also important for us. This azar for Imam Hussein is going. On the 1st of Muharram, many thought that this azar would stop. That domino effect that's been happening for 1400 years will stop. And remember one thing, it's the azar of Imam Hussein that keeps us alive today. Right? It's the azar of Imam Hussein, because Hussein is a lutf itself. There needs to be majalis. And in Leicester, there was, and you've been doing majalis, of course, with all the rules and everything else implemented. That's important. The reason being is that there needs to be, remember, azar of Hussein is a body. In every single era, in every single time, every year, there needs to be that body that comes together. And the biggest fear was that everybody would be at home, nobody would be able to commemorate Shahadat of Imam Hussein. What happens there is that bala comes down on that community. Why? Because it never happened before. For 1400 years, the dominoes have been falling and falling and falling and falling. The problem is this: if one domino falls, that special risk that comes, there's a risk of Imam Hussein that doesn't come back again until the Day of Judgment. Every year that risk is different. That is the risk that we want. And this is why these majalis are important. And we saw whether people were going in, observing social distance, or we had this media that we're going through now. I didn't know how to use this technology. Today we do. It's because of this connection that we have, is that this azar of Imam Hussein has gone into every single person's house. Why is that important for? Look at it like this. Sometimes when you go into the mosque, right, you leave your children and you'll stand outside, let's say for argument's sake. Why? Because there's somebody in there who's crying, who's beating their chest. The asarat, the nur of those individuals there is transferred onto your children, for example. But here we have to make our homes and our rooms into azar of Hussein. But remember, there's a benefit there as well. What is the benefit? The biggest benefit is this: if you truly understand why and what you're doing when you're doing azar, there are fundamentally two personalities who come here. One is the Imam of your time. Be it known, this majlis is not hidden from the Imam of your time. And with the right sincerity, which it is, if you look at all of those names which are going across at this moment in time, you know why that's important? Because that's diversity of people. There's different names with different surnames. It could be one family. But the fact is this: we're remembering people of diversity, different backgrounds, men, women. You know what that means? Your Imam becomes happy like that. He comes and he attends majalis like these. Why? Because he knows that your intention is pure. So again, this is important. Second thing is this: remember always, when you do majlis for Imam Hussein, Fatimatu Zahra alayhi salam comes. Her wujud comes, her essence comes. And that's who we're here to please ultimately. When it comes to the majlis of Imam Hussein, who are you here to please? You're here to please her. And if you can please her, then you're marhumeen, you're fine. Because there's nothing greater than that. You know, from everything that there is that we can do for our marhumeen, the biggest is azar of Imam Hussein. I want to give you a story. Story comes to mind. I want to give you a story. And the story goes like this. Look, most of you here perhaps have not seen India. Some of you may have seen it. Most of your roots are from India. But the most of you probably haven't seen India. If I describe it to you, in the north part of India, there's a province by the name of Uttar Pradesh, UP, which was a province with certain pockets of areas like Lucknow, which were heartlands of Tashayyu. Now from there, if you drive maybe 2.5 to 3 hours, you come to a city by the name of Jaunpur. An incident takes place over there. The incident was this. There was an old lady over there. And this is in our time, in our era. There was an old lady. The husband had passed away and she had one son. The good thing about this lady is that, like is for many of our elderly ladies, if you notice, they're very strict when it comes to azar of Imam Hussein. They're very strict with the traditions of Imam Hussein. And that's something which is amazing. You know, we've got to keep to those traditions. Sometimes we think to us, well, there's no halal and haram. Listen, there's no halal and haram when it comes to ishq. When you sit in a majlis, your parents will tell you, don't stick your legs out. You know why? There's no halal and haram. It's ishq. There are certain principles when it comes to love. They tell you to do wudu before you lift up the alam, for example. At least the elders used to once upon a time. when the lash, the tabut comes out, they tell you to hold it in a particular way. For example, you'll see, I've seen myself, maybe not now, but I've seen in certain parts of the world, at least in the United States, where there's some elders, very old people. And, for example, when the lash, the tabut of Ali Akbar comes out, you'll see the elders would be sitting there. Just before the Majlis, some of them would be crying. So they would be treating it as if, right now, Ali Akbar is there. Now, of course, we born in the West, raised in the West maybe, or in the global village where you don't even need to be in the West. Everybody, everywhere is West, whether you're in Dar es Salaam or in Kenya or all the way to Dubai. You think, what are these guys doing? Why are they doing it like this? No, there's an essence there. You know the essence is? Very simply, with the more respect you give, of course that elder knows there's nothing in there, in that respect, physically. But there's a barakah that comes down. And it's for the sake of that barakah that he's doing it. And believe me, there's barakah in that person's life. So anyhow, to bring it together, there was this lady. And every 10 days of Muharram, she would go and she would give water and whatever food she had for the Azadar of Imam Hussein. And she raised her son to do the same thing. Her son passes away suddenly. She buries him. And as a mother, no husband, no other children. Every Fajr time she would go and she would light a candle. Now I'm saying candle, but there's these small candles that you get, which there's what you would call a diya, right? One of those candles. She would go and she'd light those and she'd put them on the graveside of the son. And one by one, these diyas were building up. Like you see in Karbala, for example. Sometime on the day of Ashura, you see the children come with those candles, which are not straight, but they're horizontal, round. And eventually, a time comes where the moon of Muharram is sighted. And so she comes to the grave of her son for the last time. And she says, son, from today onwards, for the next 10 days, I'm not going to be coming to your grave. And the reason being is this. Is because these 10 days are now for my Mawla Hussein. She says, son, you have a mother to cry over you. Son, Hussein didn't have a mother to cry over him. On the night of Arba'in, last couple of years I've seen, when the Shuhada's mothers come and they recite, it makes you cry. Because when they come into the haram, they come shouting, screaming almost, and saying that, sons, we're not going to cry for you today. Today we're here to remember Hussein. Because Hussein's mother wasn't there to cry over him. And it breaks your heart and you sit down and you cry yourself. Human beings are such that we break when we see trial and tribulation, tragedy. You can imagine how Madhulum Hussein is. So 10 days, and then after those 10 days, what happens? And in those 10 days, she was serving the food and water or whatever she had, she was serving for the Zawar of Imam Hussein. On the 11th of Muharram, in the morning she comes. And when she comes, from a distance she sees that there's a woman sitting on the graveside. Mother, obviously any mother, only son, died. She comes running. She says, "Oh woman, I think you're on the wrong grave. This is my son's grave. Perhaps your son's somewhere else in this graveyard." And this lady who was sitting there, dressed in black, face covered, doesn't say anything immediately. And again, this woman insists. And this lady turns around and she says, "I am at the right grave." So this woman says, "But this is my son's grave." Says, "Yes, this may be your son's grave. This is your son's grave. But the fact that you cried and you dedicated yourself to my son for 10 days, in these 10 days I've dedicated to you. I've made sure that these lights are not extinguished from your son's grave. And that comes through niyyah. That comes through dedication. If you think that you're separated from the Ahlul Bayt, I don't think anyone else is. The intention is there. Anyhow, this is why it becomes important for us to remember our Marhumeen, but we dedicate in the name of Imam Hussein. And look, there are multiple other things as well which are important for us to remember. I'm going to list to you one or two things, and then inshallah we'll move on to the Masaib. You know, planting a tree. In the hadith it says, for as long as people are taking shade, you'll see that that person or the people that you've dedicated to will continue to benefit. Making a well. Today $900 can buy you a decent well, which not only can feed generations or give generations of water, but there are thousands of people that it can also benefit. For as long as people are drinking from that well. And look, it doesn't say in the hadith if a Muslim drinks. So any human being drinks. Any human being comes under the shade. But more so also is to help a yatim. And if all of us dedicated, you know how much it is? Maybe $30 to feed one yatim breakfast, let's say, for a month. Say $1 for breakfast, right? In Iraq. If all of us made a tradition, and these traditions are good traditions to make, that will sponsor one orphan in our life, especially those children who are getting married. You know, the best solution, I always say, in this time where people are getting divorced so often, is that when you get married, husband and wife both make an intention, $15 for myself. How much is $15? Say £20, right? £10 I'll give, £10 you give, 1 month worth. Even if you give £1 a day, nowadays our children can afford that. And you'll see that whatever problem befalls from your marital life, Allah will remove it. So they're very important things which are here that we can implement. But from all of this, remember, hadith says, awlad salih. If a person has good children, that is highly beneficial for them in the akhirah. That's highly beneficial from them here and in the akhirah. Question is this: what is awlad salih? First condition, or one of the first conditions for awlad salih, not only the fact that they're observing the laws of Allah, but their akhlaq is good. Develop your akhlaq. What does it mean by developing akhlaq? Akhlaq is a huge topic. I want to just raise one thing and that's it. I'll move on from this again. Right. Looking at the time, and at the time obviously is leaving us. I'll give you an example of akhlaq. Akhlaq is for everyone. It doesn't matter whether you're tall, young, big. Akhlaq essentially is not just standing up for somebody or shaking somebody's hand. That's part of akhlaq. But higher akhlaq is when you empathize with people. Empathizing means you feel people's pain. I'll give you an example, give you a story. There was an Ayatollah by the name of HASSANALI Isfahani. Now amongst the Mashhadis, they'll all know him. He was one of the greatest urafa of a generation. HASSANALI Isfahani is the teacher of Allama Hafiziyan, said Abul Hassan Hafiziyan, the famous Arif. His students today, for example, Ayatollah Wahid al-Khurasani is one of his students. Ayatollah Wahid himself is in many ways Sahib Karamat for those people who know about him. HASSANALI Isfahani student was Hafiziyan. But anyhow, he himself, just to give you a bit of a brief on his life, many of the du'as that he's left behind are so powerful that whenever somebody does it, it's almost instantaneously the haja comes forward. Ayatollah Isfahani at the age of 7 in Isfahan, his father took him to a guy by the name of Haj Tahte Fuladi. Tahte Fulad is a graveyard in Isfahan where awliya are buried. You know, in the time of the Pahlavis, and this is not the Pahlavi king, we're talking about 2,000-3,000 years ago, there were many prophets as well who have come onto that land, who are known as hukama by the pre-Islamic Persians. And they're buried, as are the Urafa, awliya are buried in this graveyard known as Taht Fulat. So this sheikh who was there, this arif who was there, used to do much of a spiritual exercise in the way that some of the great maraja of Najaf, like Ayatollah Abdul Karim Kashmiri, would do all of his riyaza in Wadi Salam. When somebody asked him, what do you think of Wadi Salam? You know, I've actually seen that when somebody asked him, they said that, where did you do all of your spiritual exercises? He said, Wadi, Hamish Wadi. And then after that, they asked him, what do you think of Wadi Salam? He says, Ruhu Rayhan. So in this way, Ayatollah Nuqadik Isfahani at the age of 7 goes to Taht Fuladi. Until the age of 11, he's spiritually trained. Taht Fuladi then writes him down. He says, look, I'm going to die. At the age of 11, he died. When Nuqadik was 11, Taht Fuladi died. After that, he goes to Qazwin, and there was somebody who was Majzub. Now, Majzub, there's two mystics, you could say. One is who does Sihr Suluk, Salik ilallah, stage by stage by stage. And then there's some who are Majzub. In one go, they reach the top. People like Sheikh Bahjat, for example, are Majzub. So he goes to this Majzub in Qazwin and he learns from him. And then after that, he goes to Najaf. In Najaf at the time, the great Arif Billah, Ayatollah Sayyid Murtaza Kashmiri, was present there. And famous stories is that when he comes into the madrasa, he's looking for Murtaza Kashmiri. Now, maybe some of you haven't heard, but I'll give you, for example, you remember in Sha'ban, 15th of Sha'ban, so Milani gave a dua to everybody to recite to protect them from this bala. That was taken from the book known as Tuhfatul Radawiyah. Why? Because the nuskha that he gave is nowhere else but in that book, Tuhfatul Radawiyah, which is written by Sayyid Murtaza Kashmiri's son, Sayyid Muhammad Kashmiri, and he writes all of the du'as of his father. Tuhfatul Radawiyah is a very famous book of amals, du'as, afkar, which is found in Karbala. And this Kashmiri family, after moving from India, Sayyid Murtaza Kashmiri moved. Very, very famous story. People were mocking him, saying, you're not Sayyid. So he goes to Imam Rada, is Radawi Sayyid. He goes to Imam Rada and he starts crying and says, they're mocking me. So he, a very simple person, goes to sleep. When he wakes up in the morning, under his pillow was an entire shajara going all the way up to Imam Ali ibn Musa Rada. If, for those people who don't know him, if I was to say, give you a better example, this Sayyid Murtaza Kashmiri, son-in-law of Ayatollah Sistani, is the great-grandson of that Sayyid Murtaza Kashmiri. He's named after him. So that was Allama Murtaza Kashmiri, the elder. And they say that when Nuqadik Isfahani walks in, looking for him, it was empty madrasa. From a room, a voice comes. He says, I'm Sayyid Murtaza Kashmiri. I'm Kashmiri. Come. And he begins his training. So you can imagine some of the great scholars. Now, I'm diverging across, and I don't want to open up a chapter. We could go on for a long time discussing the life of the awliya. The point I wanted to get to was this. When Nuqadik Isfahani comes back to Mashhad, he becomes famous. Many people from all over the world coming over just to see him, just to ask for solutions. For example, the biggest murid he had, the biggest follower he had, wasn't even Shia. Or maybe it was covert Shia. You go to Jordan today, you've got King Abdullah of Jordan. His father was King Hussein, right? His father was Abdullah. He was the grandson of who? Sharif of Mecca. Sharif of Mecca, so we would say the great-grandfather of this King Abdullah of Jordan, was the murid, the disciple of Nuqadik Isfahani. There's still letters available when he would advise him how to get out of the problems that he was going through. Remember, if you remember, Wahhabism was chucked out, this Sharif of Mecca, etc., etc. And we don't have time to go into this because our time is very concise today. A piece of history, maybe inshallah in the future, if we have time, we may discuss it. Point I wanted to raise was this, all of the story for one thing, and that was this: Nuqadiki reached a maqam, right, where the Sufis also loved him, ulama also loved. It's very rare to find everybody loving you, especially the divide today between the Sufis, the Daravish, and the ulama. We go to Iran and see, but everybody loved him. Everybody took him as a spiritual master. His grandson is alive today, he's in his 90s probably, Hujjat Hashimi, the very famous Arif, and who's visited Dar es Salaam once or twice as well, when he was probably slightly younger in the 70s. But anyhow, Nukuta key was this. He used to do Riyadha all night in the Haram of Imam Raza. They say when he would come back, and somebody's noticed this as well, it was winter time, and if you've been to Mashhad in December, you see that it snows sometimes in December, sometimes in January. He had his abba, he was wrapped outside and he was sleeping outside. So somebody asked him, why are you sleeping outside for? He says, because if I go in now, right, firstly I don't have the key, so I have to knock on the door. And if I go in, my wife will wake up. He had forgotten his key. So he says, I don't want to disturb my wife, so because of that, I'm sleeping out here. These aren't stories. This is in the 20th century. For a man to get to that maqam requires his akhlaq to be like that. Where else do you see this? This is ba'aynihi, the seerah of Rasulullah when it comes to Lady Khadija. This is the seerah of Amir al-Mu'mineen. Now, I'm not saying all the men now in this freezing cold go outside in your gardens and sleep. What I'm trying to say here is look at the akhlaq, that the person who's meant to be the closest to us, we don't take them for granted either. Or we don't take them for granted. So look, with that, I want to bring this discussion to an end. And I want to get to the main topic of our discussion, which is really the Masa'ib of Imam Hussein. Zahra's Musibah was recited. And I, in the last two Marsiyas, and this is why something's coming into my mind that I wanted to mention. The young boy recited very well, two young boys. Anoha about Amir al-Mu'mineen. And those words are very piercing. With Rajani brothers had written that. I'd done the introduction for that. You look at the Ghurba of Amir al-Mu'mineen. I want to mention two things about him, and that's it. And these are things that, when you think about it, you think the line of Allah. Kumail one day follows Amir al-Mu'mineen, and he sees Imam goes outside of Kufa, which was a desert, as it is today. And he puts his head, digs a hole, puts his head, starts crying. So he comes and he asks Amir al-Mu'mineen, he says, Mawla, why are you crying for? He says, I miss Zahra. He says, what do you miss about her? Still, he says, don't you know we're still in mourning? Because I've got nobody to share my heart with. If you know, understand the Ghurba of Ali, he's the most madhloom Imam. The reason being is he had no one. Imam Hussein has Sayyidah Zainab in Karbala. Imam Hassan had Imam Hussein. After Rasulullah and after Fatima alayhi salam, Amir al-Mu'mineen was alone. Have you ever seen a lion crying in front of their children? And that image of Zahra never left him. They say that when Amir al-Mu'mineen came for the final time to see his wife, came into the room, he saw that it was a lifeless body was lying there. She had become so skinny and so much in pain. Ulama have debated that Zahra couldn't even move left and she couldn't move right. Amir al-Mu'mineen would have to move her physically to the left and physically to the right. That's how much pain she was in. Lying there, he lifts her lifeless head and puts it on in his lap. They say tears begin to fall. When tears fall onto the face of Zahra, Zahra lifts her hand up and she begins to wipe the tears on her face. Amir al-Mu'mineen says, why'd you wipe my tears? She replies, she says that my father said to me that when a madhloom man cries, dua becomes mustajab. She says, Ali, I don't know anyone more madhloom than you. Both begin to cry. At that point, she remembers the only happy moment of her life. Look, Zahra's entire life is a masa'ib. If you look at her life, what do I mean by that? From the minute that she's born, even before that, everybody left her mother. Quraysh left her mother. After she's born, at the age of 5, she becomes yatima. People stone her father. After that, all of her life, look at the way 18 years of her life was like what? One happy moment, when she was to be married to Amir al-Mu'mineen. She says to the Imam, she says, Abul Hassan, do you remember when Allah gave me the seas and the oceans? And I'm summarizing now. Jibreel came and he gave the seas and oceans for the mahr of Fatima. She says, I remained quiet. When Allah finally asked, that what do you want? Or he said to Jibreel, ask what Zahra wants. Zahra replied, Shafa'a. She said, bring it down in a document form. Shafa'a of who? To give shafa'a for those people who cry over Imam Hussein. She says to Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen Abul Hassan, put that document in my grave, in my coffin, in my grave, so that on the day of judgment, I can take that out in front of Allah. She then continues, and the most heartbreaking moment is this, when she says, Abul Hassan, I have a wasiyah to ask. And she puts a couple of them forward. But the first thing she says is this. She says, Abul Hassan, if I've ever wronged you or hurt you in any way, please forgive me. Lion of God begins to cry louder. Zahra, how can you have hurt me? How can you have wronged me in any way? Says, if I've done anything, forgive me. And they continue and they continue. It gets to a point where she says, Abul Hassan, do get married again. But if you remember, come and say salam on my grave now and again. Yeah, Amir al-Mu'mineen couldn't take it. This is a Zahra on one condition. You reply to my salam when I come and say salam. How painful was this for Amir al-Mu'mineen? One great marja says, he says, this is how painful it was. And this is the final words I'm going to say. Imam, 33 years old, comes into the grave when he lowers Zahra. He begins to read Quran according to the wasiyat of Zahra. 33-year-old man. 2 children are waiting there, some companions are there. As he tries to stand up, his legs gave way and he fell back down into the grave again. This is Salman looks up. Amir al-Mu'mineen feels embarrassed. Which Salman? Oh, Ali, Khaybar we never saw you fall. Khandak with Badr, Uhud. They say Imam, when he looks up, the embarrassment was this. 2 children were watching. He couldn't make eye contact with them. Second time he tries to get up, second time he collapses again. Legs give way, knees give way, and he falls. It says the third time when he tries to get up, he puts his hand on the wall of the grave when he tries to stand up. Again, he feels that his knees are giving way. At that moment, from inside, he says something. You know what that was? He says, Zainab, come and help me, because your father's feeling weak today. This marja says, 2 small hands come towards the grave. It says, Father, if my mother's not here, Zainab's here to help you. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa alihi at-tahirin. If we can recite a Surah Fatiha for all of the marhumeens which you're seeing at the moment at the bottom of your screen. Allah elevate their maqamat. Allah give sabr to all of their families. Allah fulfill all of our hajat. Allah make our Imam happy with us and hasten the dhuhr of our Imam. Salawat.
Thank you very much, Syed, for that enlightening lecture. Many lessons we can take from there, and inshallah we can all implement them within our lives to remember our Marhumeen and give them the benefit of our acts in this world. And inshallah, our Allah Ta'ala can also do that for ourselves as well in the future. We'll now have ziyarat followed by ziyarat Ashura. Tawajjuh ziyarat.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alayka ya Rasulullah. Assalamu alayka ya Amir al-Mu'minin. Assalamu alayka ya Fatimatul Zahra. Assalamu alayka ya Khadijat al-Kubra. Assalamu alayka ya Hassan al-Mujtaba. Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah al-Hussein. Wa ala tis'atil ma'sumina min dhurriyyatik علي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي والحجة بن الحسن أجل الله تعالى فرجه وسهل الله تعالى مخرجه وظهورا. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
اللهم صل على زيارة عاشوراء. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله. السلام عليك يا ابن رسول الله. السلام عليك يا ابن أمير المؤمنين وابن سيد الوصيين. السلام عليك يا ابن فاطمة الزهراء سيدة النساء العالمين. السلام عليك يا ثار الله وابن ثار والوتر الموتور. السلام عليك وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك. عليك مني جميعا سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار. يا أبا عبد الله لقد عظمت الرضية وجلت وعظمت مصيبة بك علينا وعلى جميع أهل الإسلام، وجلت وعظمت مصيبتك في السماوات على جميع أهل السماوات. فلعن الله أمة أسست أساس الظلم والجور عليكم أهل البيت، ولعن الله أمة دفعتكم عن مقامكم وأزالتكم عن مراتبكم التي رتبكم الله فيها، ولعن الله أمة قتلتكم، ولعن الله ممهدين لهم بالتمكين من قتالكم. برئت إلى الله وإليكم منهم ومن أشيائهم وأتباعهم وأوليائهم. يا أبا عبد الله إني سلم لمن سالمكم وحرب لمن حاربكم إلى يوم القيامة. ولعن الله آل زياد وآل مروان، ولعن الله بني أمية قاتبة، ولعن الله ابن مرجان، ولعن الله عمرو بن سعد، ولعن الله شمرة، ولعن الله أمة أسرجت والجمت وتنكبت لقتالك. بأبي أنت وأمي لقد عظم مسابي بك، فأسأل الله الذي أكرم مكامك وأكرمني بك أن يرزقني طلب طارئ مع إمام منصور من أهل بيت محمد صلى الله عليه وآله. اللهم اجعلني عندك وجيها بالحسين عليه السلام في الدنيا والآخرة. يا أبا عبد الله إني أتقرب إلى الله وإلى رسوله وإلى أمير المؤمنين وإلى فاطمة وإلى الحسن وإليك بموالاتك وبالبراءتك ممن قاتلك ونسب لك الحرب، وبالبراءة ممن أسس أساس الظلم والجور عليكم، وأبرأ إلى الله وإلى رسوله ممن أسست أساس ذلك وبنى عليه بنيانا وجرى في ظلم وجور عليكم وعلى أشيائكم. برئت إلى الله وإليكم منهم وتقرب إلى الله ثم إليكم بموالاتكم وموالاة وليكم، وبالبراءة من أعدائكم والناسبين لكم الحرب، وبالبراءة من أشيائهم وأتباعهم. إني سلم لمن سالمكم وحرب لمن حاربكم ولي لمن والاكم وعدو لمن عاداكم. فاسألوا الله الذي أكرمني بمعرفتكم ومعرفة أوليائكم ورزقني البراءة من أعدائكم أن يجعلني معكم في الدنيا والآخرة، وأن يثبت لي عندكم قدم صدق في الدنيا والآخرة، وأسأله أن يبلغ المقام المحمود لكم عند الله، وأن يرزقني طلب ثاره مع إمام هدى ظاهر ناتك بالحق منكم، وأسأل الله بحقكم وبشأن الذي لكم عنده أن يؤتيني بمسابي بكم أفضل ما يؤتي مسابا بمصيبة، مصيبة ما عظمها وعظم رضيتها في الإسلام وفي جميع السماوات والأرض. اللهم اجعلني في مقامي هذا ممن تنال منك صلوات ورحمة ومغفرة. اللهم اجعل محياي محيا محمد وآل محمد، ومماتي ممات محمد وآل محمد. اللهم إن هذا يوم تبركت به بنو أمية وابن عقيلة الأقبار، اللعين ابن اللعين، على لسانك ولسان نبيك صلى الله عليه وآله في كل موطن وموقف وقف فيه نبيك صلى الله عليه وآله. اللهم أن أبا سفيان ومعاوية ويزيد بن معاوية عليهم منك اللعنة أبد الآبدين، وهذا يوم فرحت به آل زياد وآل مروان بقتلهم الحسين صلوات الله عليه. اللهم فضاعف عليهم اللعنة منك والعذاب العليم. اللهم إني يتقرب إليك في هذا اليوم وفي موقفي هذا وأيام حياتي بالبراءة منهم واللعنة عليهم وبالموالاة لنبيك وعلى نبيك عليه وعليهم السلام. اللهم من أول ظالم ظلم حق محمد وآل محمد وآخر تاب له على ذلك. اللهم لعن الإصابة التي جاهدت الحسين وشايت وبايت وتابعت على قتله، اللهم عنهم جميعا. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك، عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار، ولا جعل الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. اللهم افس أنت أول ظالم باللعن مني وابدأ به أولا ثم الثاني والثالث والرابع. اللهم أن يزيد خامسة، وأن عبيد الله بن زياد وابن مرجان عمر بن سعد وشمرة وعلى أبي سفيان وعلى زياد وعلى مروان إلى يوم القيامة. سجدة. اللهم لك الحمد حمد الشاكرين، لك على مسابه، الحمد لله على رزيتي. اللهم ارزقني شفاعة الحسين يوم الورود، وثبت لي قدم صدق عندك مع الحسين وأصحاب الحسين الذين بذلوا محجهم دون الحسين عليه السلام. حاجات.
We now have the widget.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Allahumma kulli waliyaka hujjatamil Hassan salawatuka alaihim wa ala abaihi fi hadhihi saati wa fi kulli sa'a waliyan wa hafidhan wa qaidan wa nasiran wa daninan wa aina hakka taskinahu arzakato wa وتمتعه فيها طويلا. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
Thank you very much to all our reciters today for this Majlis program. One final request, if you can recite Surah Fatiha for the following Marhumeen of HASSANALI Rajani family, VISRAM MUKHI family, NAZARALI BHOJANI family, JANMOHAMMED ASARIA family, HUSSEIN WALJI family, PETHA RAMJI family, HUSSEIN MOLOO family, Master Sharif family, Khwaja LALJI family, Marhum Sheikh Hassan ibn Musa, Marhuma Razia Sheikh Hassan of Sangli, Marhumeen of Abdul Karim by Merali family, Marhumeen of Fazil Karmali family, and all our Marhumeen of all those that have took part in today's Majlis program, and all our Marhumeen around the world with a Surah Al-Fatiha.